All right.
All right. So, Jess, I know just a little bit about where it is that we're going with this session, but I'm going to have you tell me what it is you're most hoping to get from it, and we will kind of dive right in from there.
Yeah, okay. I'm I guess I'm most hoping to get sort of a way forward. I'm at a point where yeah, I'm not very comfortable having sex with my partner. I've been with him for 6 years and I have like this much intimate sexual relation with him. And so I would like to, yeah, change that.
So, a way forward meaning what? A plan, a new way of viewing it.
A new way of viewing it sort of yeah, a new way of viewing my part in it.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
yeah.
Cool. So, sort of seeing what role your part in this plays and knowing what to do or what to work on. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about the situation with your partner. As much history as you feel like I need to know in order to do the coaching and where you guys are at now.
Sure. When my partner and I got together, it was the best sex I'd ever had. It was the most comfortable sex I'd ever had. I felt like really close connection with him, and that was really lovely. We have 2 kids together, and so obviously, things have been good.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't, I'll be honest, I haven't had sex with him since I was pregnant, and
Hmm.
so that's
When
been
was that?
a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and so yeah, that's as far as history goes. Those are kind of the big landmarks.
Okay.
I
Do you know
hear
why?
that at all? Sorry, my internet connection is unstable.
Oh, I can hear you fine. Do
Okay,
you need to
great.
do anything? Okay. So, do you have an answer for why you guys haven't had sex? Do you know or have any intuition about that?
Um, because I haven't been able to. I haven't felt comfortable enough to. I haven't let myself get into that position where we're having sex.
Comfortable in what way?
I'm comfortable, I guess, with the intimacy probably. Um, I He's very open. We've talked about it. We've had many conversations. I get a really strong sense of support from him, and still there's something that's blocked there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And where are you at with like erotic desire outside of him? Are you feeling erotic desire or is that all shut down?
some, yeah, but it is really outside of him.
Okay. So you
Yeah,
can still feel that spark of sexuality, but it's not connected to wanting to have sex with
yeah,
him.
yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. And tell me why, if you know, if there's anything going on in your head, what's going on with why that might be, why you're not feeling desire towards him.
I think part of it is sort of where our relationship is at, and sort of my somehow I think it connects to parenting for me, which
Okay.
is a bit unusual for me to connect like yeah sex and parenting. But
Mm.
I think that something about the way I view him as a parent
Mm.
is changing the way I view him as a person
Mm-hmm.
and giving me no there's not much there.
Sure. So no passion, no
Yeah,
desire. Yeah.
no
And how
passion.
old are your children?
1 and 3, almost 4. So the
Oh,
young
wow.
kids, and I know that that can be a tough time. It's hard.
Yeah.
We live in a very small space, so it's hard to find places to be
Mm.
sexual or romantic even.
Right.
Um, and we do try. We go on
Mm-hmm.
dates. We have opportunities. We take time for each other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it does kind of feel like a platonic relationship.
Is it an intimate platonic relationship? Are you very
Yeah,
close?
yeah,
Like best
absolutely,
friends?
absolutely. Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
so.
Sure. Okay. So, what for you in your own history of passion and desire and erotic, feelings, um, how have you been? You said that he was the best sex you ever had and also the most comfortable, and that use of the word comfortable tells me maybe you've had a lot of uncomfortable sex.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about that history.
It is long and tumultuous for me. I've in my relationships, sort of immediately before I was partnered with my husband, I wasn't having any sex. I
Hmm.
would just like I was in a relationship for almost a year and we had sex maybe 3 times. So it's not sort of an uncommon place for me to be in. And
Hmm.
it's not necessarily related to him, but
Okay.
something in our relationship changed. Yeah, the first couple of relationships I had, the first relationship specifically, was very much fiery and passionate for me, and a couple of things happened in that relationship, and they, I guess, kind of gave me a lot of self-consciousness about my sexual being, um, and
What happened?
um, how much detail do you want?
How much detail do I need?
um,
How relevant is this? It feels relevant to me, so you can
yeah,
go ahead and
yeah, it
say.
feels relevant to
Yeah.
me too. It sort of keeps coming up as something that is real for me and unprocessed.
Mm.
And so my first relationship, I was with a woman who I don't think wanted to be with women. And so I felt a lot of connection with her. I felt a lot of passion. I felt very on. And I got the sense that almost everything we did together sexually was not appreciated or wanted.
Mm.
We were quite young at the time. We were 14. And so I didn't really have the, I would check in, and there wasn't any, I don't think I was pushing myself on her. We were definitely in the relationship together. We were best friends, but I
Mm.
think that there was some disconnect there for her. And so that ended pretty messily.
Mm.
Um, and all of my relationships after that have been pretty, I don't really have a word for them. Not very close, I would say.
Hmm. And are you, that feeling of not being wanted sexually, you mentioned that something happened that changed how you viewed yourself as a sexual being.
Yeah.
Tell me about what that did, that she didn't seem to be as into it. What was the view that you have of yourself as a sexual being after that?
I guess not worthy is part of it.
Not worthy of what?
Not worthy of sex or pleasure.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's the big one. It's kind of like a not deserving.
Are you, in other relationships between then and now, are you comfortable both with men and women?
Yeah, yeah,
You've had other relationships with men since, or
yeah,
before your husband, I mean? Okay.
yeah. I have.
Is there, for
Before my
you?
husband, I swore off men though. I said to
Oh,
myself,
really?
I'm tired of relationships where I'm not close to people emotionally, where people aren't giving me emotionally what I need.
Uh-huh.
Then I met my partner, and he did.
Oh. Does he still?
He tries.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you don't let him, or do you feel like something else is going on?
Um, a little bit of both. I think I've got some pretty big walls up, and I think he's also going through his own sort of transformation, kind of based on where he's realized he was at as a parent, and where our relationship was at. He realized there were some things that he needed to unpack, and so he's going through that kind of separate from me. And we are, we're still, like I said, pretty intimate, just not physically or
Right.
sexually.
So tell me about the way you see him as a parent and the effect that that has on you that you mentioned. It seems, my
Mm-hmm.
interpretation of that was that something about watching him be a father to your children makes his sexual being less appealing or less clear.
Yeah, I guess I see, when I see him parent, I see a big lack of confidence. And where before I kind of felt like I had somebody, I had found somebody that was able to kind of help me through some of the challenges that I had faced in previous relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing him lack confidence and seeing him kind of stumble like that in parenting, and have a hard time getting through things has made it hard for me to sort of trust that he is the sexual partner I want.
Ooh, so he was confident as a partner and a person.
Yeah,
And then once he became a parent, and it sounds like he as well agrees that his confidence was not there.
yeah, yeah.
Do you know why?
Um, Probably because my critical feedback.
Ah, uh-huh, sure. Um, so you don't agree with the way he parents, or you criticize because you think it needs to be different?
I criticize because I think it needs to be fine tuned.
Mm.
I Can be very particular.
Mhm.
That's something I know about myself, and I express that when I
Mhm.
feel comfortable.
Are you very confident as a parent?
Yes, I would say so. If
What
I'm
do you
not
wish
confident, I fake it.
what do you wish he was as a parent that he's not?
I wish that he was more empathetic. I wish that he put himself in the kids' shoes and saw things from their perspective more.
Mm.
And I wish that he was more aware of the subtle signs that they give him, the feedback, the nonverbals and stuff that they give him, that he's affecting them certain ways,
Mhm.
and more willing to kind of tweak his approach based on those.
So tell me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like something that if I noticed in the father of my children, I would also start noticing other places.
Yeah, yeah,
Are you,
absolutely.
do you
Absolutely.
feel with him then that he's not as empathetic or attentive to your needs?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that just becomes clear when seeing it and kind of
Yeah,
highlight it?
yeah. And then I come up against it and I'm
Right.
like, no, actually, I'm not ready to keep going because I don't think this is going to change if we keep moving forward.
Wow. Yeah. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you and specifically wanted to do a coaching session around sex is because I think it's so fascinating how much we are butchering it in our culture, how terribly uneducated we are about how all of it works and what actually like gives people pleasure and everything and what we need for
Yeah.
intimacy. But so hearing that tells me one of the things that most women, I mean, these are massive generalizations, but it's like,
Yeah.
most women are able to step into being sexual beings only when they have a partner who sees them as a sexual being and is attentive to their needs.
Yeah.
And part of that is biology. It's like the investment behaviors of someone who would be a good, partner when you were pregnant or had newborns. And so him being attentive to your needs says, I'll stick around, I'll protect you,
Yeah.
biologically speaking. Plus then we've got, like Disney and romantic comedies and everything sort of saying a very similar thing, that he's so attentive to your needs is like the ideal.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. And so if what you're seeing is highlighting that he actually is not attentive to anybody's needs, or at least not to the kids, and it sounds like not to you,
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time imagining how you feeling sexual with him could work,
Mm-hmm.
because being seen is what starts the arousal process for a lot of women, and being seen requires somebody being attentive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just sharing this as like a bit of a blanket statement. Tell me if this resonates with you.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it does. And also, sort of beside that, I hope and imagine, I am a sexual being on my own. And even, even if we were sexual beings alongside each other that kind of, bashed into each other every once in a while, that would be fine.
Hmm.
But I really am like turned off when I'm with him.
Yeah. Well, so I guess that's what I mean. It's certainly not to say that you need someone to see you as a sexual being in order to be sexual.
Yeah.
Um, but within a dynamic like what you have, I do think it sounds like the walls that are being put up, that turned off. You're not neutral. You're not like, whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
a turned off. There's something really standing in the way.
Yeah.
Um, I guess it just is sounding to me like that's where it might start.
Yeah.
And, you can kind of correct me and we'll keep diving into it. But somebody who's not seeing you, not attending to you, why would you let that person sleep with you? Like
Absolutely.
what motivation would there be for that other than
Yeah.
the logical stuff of like, well, I guess I should, he's my husband or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
But, so tell me about the beginning. Was he attentive to you in the beginning?
Absolutely. He had nothing else going on in his life.
Does he now? Is he busy?
Pardon?
Is he busy now? Does he have more
Yeah,
stuff
he
going
is. He's got 2 kids and work and whatever
Right.
else. But he was, yeah. Yeah, when we met, there wasn't much else going on. And I think he thought I was a goddess, basically. And
How
I
did
think
that
he still
feel?
does, but also a bit differently.
Sure.
It felt awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It felt great.
Yeah. So if the thing that gave you the best sex of your life was this man who treated you like a goddess and saw you as a goddess and tended to you as a goddess, and now kind of doesn't and sees you as like, what, I'm guessing the mother of his kids, a cool person,
Yeah, yeah. I
something
mean,
like that.
probably also a goddess, but I think he's more focused on doing dishes than he is on actively being with me.
Hmm. And have you talked to him about this particular issue of
Yeah.
feeling like a goddess and then not?
No, no, I haven't. I haven't.
Well,
I've talked to him about the stuff that he's doing instead, but not
mm,
about what I wish he was doing.
ooh, interesting. What do you think would happen if you said, like, here are some of the examples of what it was like in the beginning and how it made me feel like a goddess and why that turned me on so much? Can we try more of that? How do you think that would go?
For me or for him? I
Both,
think
really.
I think it would be interesting for me to do, and I'd be interested to see his reaction.
Mhm.
Um, I would feel like I was asking too much of him because
Ooh.
I know that he really wants to be close to me. And so if I brought that up, I would feel like I was giving him more to do kind of thing, putting more on his plate. Um, and I would worry about the expectation that he had that if he did the right stuff,
You'd want
that he
to.
would get into my pants.
Yeah. Does it bother him that you guys don't have sex?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It
So
does.
is there some pressure for you then to like keep his expectations at bay until you're really sure? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And I
then,
try not to sometimes, like I'll flirt with him
uh-huh.
and he'll say later on or, later in the week, basically like, you were teasing me. Why did you do that?
Mm,
Because I was feeling close to you.
yeah. Ooh, so that actually is a whole separate thing that I want to acknowledge. So you and I talked about this. Anybody who's, watching, listening, clearly one session on this topic it's not really enough. This
Yeah,
is such a rich, nuanced, layered topic. But for the purpose of today, I'm going to help you hopefully unpack a few different directions of what is going on and what you can do for that plan moving forward. So I want to acknowledge that this is one little container over here. And that is that when someone is pursuing you, and it's your job to keep that boundary of not letting anything happen, there
yeah,
becomes more and more pressure on you to pull back harder and harder or build taller and taller walls,
yeah.
just because that's the nature of being pursued by somebody who wants to sleep with you when you're like not ready yet or
Not
whatever.
ready. Yeah,
So that becomes a spiral, and that makes it harder and harder for you to let's say you're stepping into like a 15% of your own sexual self, right? This is
yeah,
great, it's the most you've felt in weeks, and you're like flirting with him and you're feeling good, and then
yeah,
when he puts that pressure on you in any way, or you feel it from him that like now he's
yeah,
hoping this goes somewhere, now you have to slam the brakes on and
yeah.
stop everything, and that
Retreat
gets
a bit.
yeah, that really gets in the way of
Yeah,
arousal. It really gets in the way of you being able to feel free and uninhibited, which is, again, a requirement for moving into your sexual self. Um, so that's one thing there, is breaking that pattern. As you start doing all of the other stuff that we talk about and moving in those directions, you're just going to have to be aware that that pattern is like sitting on top of everything at this point.
yeah,
That's not necessarily like the deep stuff. That's just what has happened over the last year or two as you've been pulling
yeah,
back from sex, and
for
he's
sure.
interested in sex. So that's kind of the dynamic that tends to build. Um, if possible, and it does sound like you guys have great communication, I would recommend just telling him, pointing out that pattern and being like, I really want to start stepping into my sexual self without any pressure to
Yeah,
continue on, just so that he knows, like, this is a really good thing for him if you feel no pressure or inhibition to flirt with him, right?
yeah,
Doesn't mean he's going to get laid this week, but it might mean that in a few months when you work through this stuff, you
yeah,
can get back to being the way you want to be. If
yeah,
you don't feel free to be sexual, it's going to be a lot longer of a road for him as well. So just something to break the cycle, and even making it playful, like, I want to be allowed to tease you.
yeah,
It could be a fun kind of experiment, knowing that at the end he just has to like take it, and my wife just sat on my lap and was like flirtatious with me and then left, and that's where we're at right now.
yeah,
So yeah, just a thought on that.
yeah. Fair. That
Cool.
sounds reasonable. Totally.
Awesome. So then going back to how he sees you, um, and wanting to feel like a goddess, wanting to feel attended to, seeing him be less confident with the kids, and how that kind of makes you, sounds like, highlight how he's less confident maybe in general,
Yeah.
or with you. I'd like to hear the connection between that and your criticizing of him. If they feel connected to you, what is
Hmm.
the link there?
I haven't thought about them as connected.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe they're not.
No, but I mean, why else would I want to criticize him about his parenting? I know that criticism isn't something that helps people parent better
Sure.
or do anything better, right? I have that awareness. Until I find myself bringing things up all the time, I guess my hope is that um, that his awareness of those little things will change, and that we'll be able to move on kind of together. What was your question again?
What, if any, is the connection between your criticizing him and him not seeing you as a goddess?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one.
How did you see him at the beginning?
Cute. We had a really good connection as far like we could talk and talk and talk and talk. I saw him as kind of a grungy dude that liked to have a good time and would be fun to hang out with for a while.
And then when you started having amazing sex, did it shift how you saw him?
No.
Hmm.
Well, no, not really. I guess I thought maybe I could hang out with him for a lot longer.
Okay.
Yeah, we were both pretty unattached, and it was really just nice to be with him. It felt good. It felt good in many ways. It felt like, yeah, it felt like a good thing to be doing. Doing.
I ask because I wonder if the way that you view him shifted around the same time, or, you know, in tandem with the way that he views you. And that's something that would be pretty common in any relationship that goes on, because in the beginning, first of all, we project everything we want the person to be, and that's what we see, and we really focus on the things we have in common, and we totally ignore everything that we don't. And then, you know, life goes on, the chemical cocktail of the newness in the beginning shifts, and all of a sudden you're able to focus on the things you don't share, the values that are in conflict, all these things become much more apparent. So that part of that is just normal, you know, long-term monogamous relationship kind of deal. But also there's something I think about when you're new with somebody and you worship each other, that there is like an upward spiral to that, that the more you see your partner as, you know, sexy as hell and confident and hilarious and charming and all that stuff, the more you bring all those things out in him. And the more that he sees you as just like a sexual goddess and, you know, amazing and beautiful, the more he brings all of that out in you. So I wonder, I guess, if you guys if you were bringing those things out in each other, and what shifted where now you might be bringing out entirely other parts of each other.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that that definitely was the case in the beginning, that we really built for a long time. We went through a move together to a different place. We both had some tough times while we were there. Things started to kind of go down, and started to notice that as the pattern.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a pretty apt description.
Cool. So in that case, a lot of this can come down to the way that we identify ourselves and our partners in a relationship. And unfortunately, I think we do this, like I said, we do this terribly in our culture. We basically, we try to reinvent ourselves, but it's really, really hard when your partner, who felt like we agreed that we would be two people, and now you're not this person, and now I'm not this person. We just don't have skills for that typically. But particularly when hard stuff happens and you start to lose that feeling of like, my partner is amazing and brilliant and competent and sexy. And then they just become like a person who's around you a lot.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get back to that idea of the romantic beginning where everything is, you know, so sparkly and kind of has like a halo around each other.
Yeah, totally.
So I guess I would question, do we need everything to be that sparkly? Personally, I don't think we do, but, you know, it's a question worth asking. And if not, then what can you get to? Because you're not going to get back to that, but what can you get to that would feel equally as good at this point in your life and relationship?
Yeah.
And part of that is how you see him. Part of that's how he sees you, of course, but we can't control that. So, you know, you can certainly share some of this stuff with him and no doubt you probably would want to at some point, but how you treat him, how you see him, what you bring out in him, those are things you can control with your own behaviors, like criticizing, for example.
Yeah. I need an alternative. I need
Totally.
another way to keep, that communicate
Yeah.
what I
And
think
so
is important.
criticizing, exactly, because criticizing shows up when you don't have a better way of communicating what's important to you, or you feel like the person won't hear you if you share it some other way.
Yeah.
So I guess it really does come down to, what do you wish was different? What do you wish he knew? And most likely what you wish he knew wasn't like to pick up the socks,
Yeah.
what you wish he knew was, I work really hard to keep this house clean, and if you supported me in that, I would have more time and energy to spend on things I love and
Yeah.
you. So those are like majorly different ways of approaching the same desire. So that would be one area of looking at behavioral changes you can make to bring out a different side of him, and to move back to a place where he gets to identify as someone who rocks your world, instead of as someone who's constantly letting you down.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it
For sure.
sounds like that's where he's at. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How long is it going to take?
This is just a wave a magic wand and it's all going to go away.
Well, because like I agree, it totally, and I've tried to do that for days, weeks,
I
and then
see.
when it doesn't change anything, when nothing's changing, and I'm putting in energy, it just like it
Mhm.
goes back to the same place,
Yeah.
and then I start to wonder, like, is it that dynamic, or is it just that we are incompatible?
Totally. And that is something that, like, again, if we had lots of time, that'd be something
Yeah.
that you probably want to explore. But for now, I guess I would just ask, what does your gut tell you? Do you have a gut feeling about it?
My gut is that I've put in as much energy as mm, I've put in a lot of energy, and I'm not sure how much more I have to give.
Okay. And that energy is what? To change his behaviors?
No, not at all. To change my behaviors
Oh,
in a way that our partnership, that affects our partnership, so that it works.
gotcha. And yeah.
If I do enough things that stress him out, I'll try not to do those things.
Yeah.
If my feedback is putting him on edge, I'll try to lay off, and that doesn't end up having, it doesn't end up being useful. It doesn't
Right.
feel like I'm getting out of it as much as I'm putting in.
Yeah, yeah. What about acceptance? What role could acceptance play in making it less work for you? It sounds like all that energy you're putting in, it is a lot of work, but it's all with the fundamental belief, it sounds like, that you have to do something or
Yeah.
not do something, stop yourself from doing something. But what
Yeah.
if it was as simple as accepting him for who he is, and that you didn't see that before, that this
Mhm.
is a new part of who he is, and coming from that place instead of coming from a place of needing to fix or do or change or help.
Yeah. That's something I haven't tried.
How does it sound to you? I mean, everybody's imperfect,
Challenging.
right? Yeah.
It sounds challenging. It sounds like I would lose some control there, right? Like I would just have to let go of my own, yeah.
Your
But
own
it
way.
sounds like I imagine that in accepting and doing that I would see, without my own actions coloring the situation, that I would be able to see things as they were.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what comes to mind.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
That's what I'm making
True.
them, but just
Right.
as what they are.
Yeah. So I guess the question for me of acceptance arose because of the amount of work you're doing to change or fix tells me that the background to all of this is, there's a huge problem here and you're chipping it away at it in a million different ways.
Yeah.
And certainly there's areas that you can shift, but your relationship shouldn't drain you with all the work you do to fix it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it feels to him like he either has to do that work, like you said, you didn't want to put more on his plate, or that he feels you doing that work and whatever, comes up there.
Yeah.
That is exhausting.
Yeah. We're both exhausted.
Yeah, it sounds completely exhausting. So I guess the question, like with body image, it's like, how do I solve and fix and change and solve and fix and change? And then eventually you go, well, what if my body's not a problem? Yeah, what if my body's not a problem?
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah. So for you, I guess I'm wondering, what if these things that you're seeing, his lack of confidence as a parent, for example, aren't a problem? That's not to say you have to just settle for everything exactly the way it is and never work on anything. But what if it wasn't a problem?
Yeah. Then, yeah, well, I guess I would see. I guess I would have to wait and see.
Yeah.
What if?
And I wonder, kind of the place this comes from for me is what might happen if both of you felt accepted, because I think that you don't feel seen or accepted in this relationship either.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about what you can control is kind of like, hopefully leading by example and guiding you in a direction where you also feel seen and accepted for who you are now, not for who you were when you guys first got together.
Yeah.
And that what would happen to arousal or libido from that place? Would that take down some of those walls, take away some of that pressure? It almost sounds like your libido is, purposefully keeping you from going there with him because everything is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So if it wasn't, I just wonder, would that allow some healing to happen for you in that space with him?
Yeah. Good question. I wonder too.
Yeah. So a lot of these things, it's just things to consider. It's not certainly not a one-stop shop of solutions. But since we have a few minutes left, and I feel like as far as creating a plan to move forward, we've kind of just unpacked a bunch of lateral directions. So what feels to you like what you want to move forward with, or anything that we've talked about so far that feels the most important to continue working towards or on?
Yeah, it sounds like I have some conversations to have. I really appreciate some of the framing you gave me around that. We do have a lot of good communication, and I think a lot of our communication falls just a little short from what we actually want to be saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that's somewhere to really consider for myself what I want to be communicating, so that I'm doing that fully.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I can think about kind of going forward or after this. Acceptance is a big one. Talk about acceptance all the time, right? I accept my kids all the time. I really just whatever they are is great. And then I don't model it.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that criticism stuff, like, to me, habitual criticism comes from resentment, and resentment comes from not having spoken up about your needs, or, whatever needed to be spoken up got swallowed, and then resentment forms in that situation. So if criticism is just sneaking out everywhere, I would look at that resentment and see really what it is about, because, we can kind of guess here, but I'm guessing that there's something more specific for you about a way in which he let you down, or a way in which you were hoping that he would be that he's not.
Yeah.
And that lack of acceptance, I think, is probably a bit more specific than we've touched on so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you thought you had a partner who was like this and don't.
Yeah. Or I thought I had a partner who would at least do this when I specifically asked.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm thinking about.
But even that right there.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much those little day-to-day things in a long-term relationship start to feel like, have you heard the love languages, or have you read about the love
I have heard about it. I haven't read about it. Yeah.
So, it's the basic idea is there's like 5 love languages, and everybody speaks to each other and feels love in one of these ways. And one of them is acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch. So it's amazing how much just doing what the other person asked you to do can become an act of love. If that's, how you are seeing it. It's like, take out the trash, honey, take out the trash, just take out the trash when I ask you to. And the other person doesn't see it as an act of love. They see it as a boring chore that they don't want to do. And then you end up feeling unloved, and they end up just thinking that, like, who cares when the trash goes out? So in a lot of ways, these daily mundane sorts of things, they are the way that we love each other in a long-term relationship. So if you are asking specifically and he's not doing it,
Yeah.
it's no damn wonder you feel unappreciated or unloved or unwilling to be intimate physically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again,
Take out the damn trash.
just take the trash out. Again, I think that the vagina or the libido, they're a barometer in a lot of ways of how
Yeah.
safe you feel, how seen you feel. And in this example, it's saying no to something. So as far as a path forward goes, we've given a lot of different areas to think about, but I would say really explore what exactly it's saying no to.
Yeah. What's it measured?
Yeah, exactly. And is that something that's okay with you? Because maybe it's
Yeah.
measuring just something about him that you need to accept because people are imperfect and relationships are tough.
Totally.
Or maybe it's measuring something really, like he is not speaking your love language and you have not felt loved in a long time. That would be a major thing to
Yeah.
have to look at.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I suspect that this all work will have to be unpacked before you can even get to the place of what does arousal feel like to you? What makes you feel like a sexual being? I have a friend who always says, like, how do you get someone to have sex who doesn't want to have sex? The same way you would offer someone, like, if you wanted to get someone to eat who wasn't hungry, you would offer them dessert. So like, how can he offer you dessert? Whatever that is. And maybe that's not actually sexual yet. Maybe it's like a back rub or, light sensual touching or making out or something. Where again, you have nice, strong boundaries, so you don't have to turn him down after and do all the work of defending yourself. But you just agree, like, hey, on Thursday night, can we make out for 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And then just let that be it. Like, there's literally, you're not allowed to go past that because that's the structure. So I suspect those things might be fun, but probably not until you've done some of the unpacking of what your body's no is actually about.
Yeah, totally. It's a great start. That sounds manageable.
Yeah. So since I have a few minutes with you, why don't we go into that, since that feels like a good direction? Do you know what the no is about? Do you know what, just having heard all that, you are needing or wanting or expecting of him that's not getting met?
I can think of a few things. Yeah, I guess gentleness is one of them. Gentleness in approach. Like gentleness as the opposite of like clumsiness.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you mean physically?
Yeah, physically, emotionally, kind of, lack of subtlety, just kind of.
Okay. Gentleness.
Yeah, gentleness.
Mm.
Like that, awareness of others and empathy kind of plays into that for me, and sort of being noticing and acting in a way that leaves space for others and is soft.
How much of his lack of softness do you think is like masculine conditioning?
Right? Yeah, big time. Big time. It's hard to step away from those things, even if you want to, right? Like it's masculine conditioning or like feminine conditioning for me.
Totally.
Like I
I ask
walk into a room and I listen, and he walks into a room and he says hi, no matter what is happening in the room, right? I'll look around and I'll see what's going on, and he'll just
Yeah.
heck. Yeah, totally. We had a conversation about this the other night too.
Oh yeah. It's interesting. So I fully resonate with that. I think it's really challenging, especially if the male partner in question is not super dedicating his life to, feminist principles. It can be incredibly frustrating to feel, especially in this, modern horrible culture politically and everything, that they're not doing enough to like be setting things right. And so, yeah, I guess.
Expectations too.
Say that again.
Those are high expectations too.
Yeah, totally. Completely challenging because, you got to meet people where you're at. You got to accept them. But on the other hand, do more. This is crazy. So I think that's definitely, you can never pull it apart, what's conditioning and what's just him. But it sounds to me like you are recognizing a need for if not feminist values, then, you know, tapping into his feminine side or moving into that space.
And for me, that brings up another important piece, which is social connections outside of the relationship.
Mm-hmm. What does
You
that
know,
mean?
if I'm getting, you know, like I do have many good social connections outside the relationship, but if those other connections aren't nourishing and don't give me those aspects, then I look for it in him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so same for him. If he's not getting other feedback, then he's looking for something very specific in me.
Right.
And so the piece where like being everything to each other is impossible.
Yeah, right. It is for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just an intuitive question. It could be totally
Uh-oh.
off base, but I know it just made me think of it. I want to follow what you were saying, but it really like struck me.
Yeah, no, I'm curious.
Okay, so you are bisexual, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Is that how you identify? Okay. So all of this desire for something soft and gentle and intuitive and empathetic, is there any part of you that is feeling like you want a female partner at this point in your life?
Yes. Yeah. And not necessarily I want a female partner and not my male partner,
Mm.
but I do at this point definitely, I find that really nourishing.
Uh-huh.
And I'm feeling really drained and exhausted. And so I am in many ways looking for that nourishment, and I'm not getting it from my male partner.
Right. Yeah. And so there's something to me about that that's really striking, because when we talk about what it is that your body's saying no to, what was the expectation, what's the standard, if
Yeah.
you're holding him against a female partner, he can never succeed. It's an interesting, I mean, it's a painful thing, I think, to come up against.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a reality.
Yeah. Have you are on the table at all? Is anything like polyamory or an open relationship at all on your guys' radar?
It's on our radar. It's something that we've talked about. One of the issues, you know, one of the things, lack of confidence is something that I see. Another issue that's come up in parenting is ability to make plans and move forward from just an initial surface conversation. So we talk about it a little bit, but we never like, hey, let's read a book and come back in a week, or hey,
Mhm.
let's think about what this would mean for each of us, or you know, so getting to that next step is often a huge challenge. And so even if we sit down and talk about next steps, we don't ever get to the next step.
Huh.
Well,
Does that put all the pressure on you to be the planner and doer and mover?
of course, yeah.
Right. Which again is tiring and kind of not
Someone's
the
got to
point.
do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, kind of going back to the question of identity and how you guys see each other, I wonder how much his pulling back, it does sound like there is pulling back. It sounds like there's a disengagement on some level here from him. How much of that is in response to feeling like you have impossible standards and not being wrong?
Yeah.
It's not impossible necessarily but they're impossible for him because he's
Yeah.
who he is.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's kind of where you guys are getting stuck, is like, I love you, but I can't, like, this isn't what I want to need right now. And you literally can't change to make that happen for me.
Yeah.
And being like, okay, you know what? I'll love you from over here. And you let me know if it's safe to come back.
Yeah. I would say that's a big part of it. That sounds like a description of something that I feel every day.
Just that's excruciating.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks.
Have you two together acknowledged how much that's painful?
Probably not, no. No, I think we've talked about how it's painful for each of us at different times in different ways, but not as a thing that we share.
Yeah. I wonder what would happen if you shared it. I mean, that's it would be very brave, I think. It sounds like you guys are kind of down for these types of conversations, but it would be a
We
very
dig
brave thing to share your pain about this
in.
and recognize that a lot of what you're trying to do planning moving forwards is feeling lost about it. Like feeling unsure if he can provide what you need, or if you'd have to find that somewhere else in a female partner or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And if so, does that mean automatically that you lose him? Or is there other options on the table that would work for you guys? And all of that, I think, is really doable, really brave, probably amazing. But right now, it seems like you guys haven't even acknowledged how painful it is that you're looking at any of it, really.
Yeah. One of the things that comes up when we talk about, opening up our relationship, if you will, is that it would make sense to do that from a place of stability.
Right.
Right. Rather than as an answer, but finding that stability, even if, whatever that stability looked like.
Yeah. Have you read The Ethical Slut?
No, I haven't.
It's basically on this. It's like how to open an established relationship. Also, I really recommend Evian Whitney. She calls herself an erotic doula or something like that. She's amazing, but she blogs. She's a relationship and sex coach. She specifically blogs about opening up her marriage with her husband of however many years.
Awesome.
And it's really interesting.
Thank you. I'll
Yeah.
check them out.
So along those lines, I would say acknowledging is probably important and probably part of what needs to happen before moving into the planning and opening of conversation stage in either direction that you guys go, because that at least allows you to bond again. Like, this sucks. Yeah. This really hurts. And neither of you are doing it on purpose. It's not like anybody's intentionally hurting the other person.
Yeah.
This is just a really tough situation.
Yeah.
I do have a relationship coach friend who always says that most people will have 2 or 3 marriages in their lifetime. Some people get to have them with the same partner, meaning you don't get to keep the same dynamic forever. And this might be that, you guys hit a wall with the old dynamic. It's not working anymore. Now what?
Now what?
Open, is it recreating? Is it re-identifying? Is it taking some space and then, learning about each other from a new place? This might be entering your second stage of marriage, if that's what needs to happen.
Yeah. Feels like a transition to something. I don't know what, but it's been building for a while. It's been uncomfortable for a while, and it's time.
Yeah. Yeah. So where were we going right before I asked that question about a female partner? We had something else that I wanted to ask about. I should have written it down. I don't remember. How does all this feel now? This is like a totally different direction, but
I'm totally interested. I have a huge lump in my throat, and I have some optimism also.
Cool.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like literally no matter which direction you choose, you've been stuck, and putting yourself in motion is going to feel good. Yeah. I also think no matter a direction which you choose, you're going to have to grieve.
Yeah.
You're going to have to grieve the relationship that you either no longer are because you're moving into a new phase, or you no longer are because you no longer are. But that either way, there's a huge amount of grief that can be shared between you and must be experienced at least by you, so that you can free yourself from this stuck, what's the word? Like, before you get into heaven, you just like wait in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Yeah. That place.
Common word that everybody knows.
Right. The obvious word. That's where you're stuck. You're just sitting there going, could be so many things.
Yeah. In limbo.
In limbo? No, there's like a biblical word.
Oh,
It's like where they decide if you're good or you're bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're in limbo. You're basically waiting to decide what happens next. And it honestly sounds like you're avoiding some of that grief.
Yeah.
And hoping it just gets better in the old way instead of going, whoo, it's time to like create something new here.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And it will be painful. And grief is a tool. Grief does let you move forward.
Absolutely. That's probably the lump.
Yeah. Well, that's what made me think of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have grieving to do. You have some conversations to ask him about or to process on your own.
I've got some dates to set up.
Yeah, for sure.
Make out dates.
I love that. one other thing I wanted to mention, and this is something that I'm passionate about with so many of the women I talk to who feel like sex drive or libido or lack of arousal are an issue, is to take the time for yourself. Obviously, like, you and him have your own stuff, and that block is against him, right? So that's like its own thing. But also, just for you, take the time to set yourself up as a sexual being on a regular basis. If you live in a small place and this is hard to do, you'll have to probably be creative. But, you know, making out with him once a week, and things like sensual touching, just like literally putting on music and touching yourself for 5 minutes in the morning, can start to wake your body back up to being a sexual creature. Yeah. And one of the things that increases libido is being sexual, having sex, you know, orgasms. So the more,
and if I don't trust someone else to do it, I trust myself.
Exactly. And it kind of sounds like now is a good time to reset that with yourself anyway. Like, you know, notice what you're fantasizing about. Give yourself what you really want. Yeah. Be as gentle and, you know, tender with yourself as you are craving, and see what happens.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, it does, right? It's stoking your fire. It also puts you in a more empowered place, because it sounds like a lot of the resentment with him is like, I need something and you're not giving it to me. Yeah. So giving it to yourself is a way of putting yourself back in the driver's seat of that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned this already, but giving yourself the, you know, the tribe, putting yourself out there and going, you know what, actually right now it's more important for me to go to this drum circle with a bunch of women that I know who are going to talk about the feelings at the full moon than it is for me to stay home and, you know, make dinner with you or whatever. Like, that's what I need right now. So offering yourself the things that fill your tanks so that you don't resent him for not filling them for you. Yeah. Just sort of self-care 101 on that, I guess. But sexual it's very particular. The more you stoke it, the more you're right there. That energy is around you. It's a part of you. Instead of being like, now I have to start from cold to try to get in the mood. It's like this climbing a mountain, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it makes me think about what you say about seeing myself as a goddess, or having him see me as a goddess.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, build it up.
Exactly. And there is something that can happen in that way. Like, if you are stoking your fire and stepping into some erotic, you know, pleasure-filled goddessy place, he's going to feel that, you know, and maybe you'll be willing, and maybe he'll see you differently, and it can move things. Yeah. But I suspect, given everything else we talk about, it wouldn't be enough on its own, that there's other deeper, more painful blocks. Yeah. That would have to be addressed.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Giving me permission to love myself.
Yes, absolutely. To fill your own tanks and be your own goddess, and figure out what you want and need from this partner who you have. Yeah.
That's the hard part.
It is. So here's what I will say. I think you are doing an amazing job of having gotten this far in your own processing. I think that you are obviously care deeply about doing this right. You're not like trying to cut and run or anything. You're really willing to put in the work, but you've hit an exhaustion point. You've hit a saturation level of doing the work by yourself, or at least what it has felt like. So just switching directions, taking the attention off of trying to fix you and him, and just focusing on you for a while, and then offering him some of the insights that you're coming up with. Yeah. And seeing where that goes. It will be certainly an unfolding, but I think you're doing a great job.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. So that's it. Any other thoughts or questions?
All of the questions I have are sort of about, you know, they're a bit bigger than this. It's like, does monogamy work?
Oh yeah.
So, you know, the questions I have are questions I have, not necessarily questions I have for you.
Right. Well, then definitely go read The Ethical Slut, because it speaks to it, I think, in a way that is really approachable and pragmatic. And, you know, it's not for everybody, but like it makes everybody allowed to think about it, I think, if that makes sense. Yeah. And yeah, you know, maybe it's not, I don't know, but I would say maybe it's not for some people. Yeah. And maybe it's not for some partnerships. So these are big things for you to do some processing around. As you learn about it and get a little bit more exposed to how other people are doing it, you might have a really cut and dry reaction like, oh, hell no, or oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
And that will give you your information, because
Yeah.
I don't think there's an umbrella rule about whether or not monogamy works for everybody.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I'm going to stop us there. I'm going to hit the stop record, but you can stay on for a sec. I just want to thank you for being here, for volunteering to do this so that other people can watch and see what a coaching session can look like.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, this was very fucking brave of you to volunteer on this topic.
Yeah,
So
I'm happy to talk.
Very grateful and very impressed. I was a little worried that we wouldn't be able to like kind of get into the nitty gritty, but you went there and it was amazing. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been great. I wish I could do this with you every week.
All right, I'm gonna hit stop. Thank you.